WWF, the arcade game, would be among some of the earliest wrestling games to be released on consoles, especially with the likes of the PlayStation and Sega Saturn back in the day. But when it did release, being a port of the original arcade entry, it also found home on many different systems, along with the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis, the 32X add-on, the Super Nintendo, the Sony PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and even the PC DOS system. It will allow you to play as some of your favourite wrestlers during this period within the WWF platform, with a total of 8 characters in general. Now, some of them were omitted for different platforms, especially with the likes of the Super Nintendo or the Mega Drive, obviously to compensate for the limitations of those console platforms. And you had commentary by Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler. And what's noticeable from the get-go is the digitized graphics that are on display here, as the game, as it was also developed and published by Acclaim Entertainment, bears an uncanny resemblance and takes a lot of inspiration from the earlier Mortal Kombat games. That on the surface, yes, it is a wrestling game, but playability wise, it acts more of a fight or brawler game, where most of the time you'll find yourself using punches and kicks and special moves in order to win fights. There are different modes that are available and seasons where you can fight for the World Championship or the Intercontinental title, and you can play like both multiplayer modes, almost like tag team, where you can have multiple different characters on the screen at the same time. And the roster lineup that's involved includes Bret the Hitman Hart, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Bam Bam Bigelow, Yokozuna, Doink the Clown, and Lex Luger. And they all have their own distinctive traits, abilities and movesets, and goes for humour above anything else. The same elements can be seen in the follow-up, which released sometime later on the PlayStation with WWF in Your House, which in a lot of ways essentially is the same game but just adds more features than what was seen in this version. So when you're going through the season modes, Intercontinental and even the WWF Championship, at different points you will face in one-on-one matches, but then later on you'll end up in handicap matches where you'll have 2-on-1 and even 3-on-1 events in order to try and win the title, which can make it very, very difficult because you're fighting 2 or 3 opponents on the screen at once, but you've only got 1 health bar and it doesn't replenish, so you have to try and utilise your abilities and skills to have any chance of winning. Plus you do have to rely on a bit of luck as well, because the AI in this game can be quite aggressive and can be quite tricky. If you've ever played any of the Mortal Kombat games, you know all too well how difficult those games can be, how it can be so easy in one match and then the next match it's like even when you're playing on the easiest difficulty, the AI just ramps up onto level 10 and it just kicks your ass basically. This here is no different, but if you do manage to complete all of the tournaments, you're then met with the likes of the entrance sequences for the characters as a way to celebrate the victory. There are some different variations with regards to some of the ports. Yes, some of the characters were removed but other parts were left in and left out depending on each platform, but generally they were well received. If anything, they got really good reviews in all the magazines across all console ports, with the Saturn and the PlayStation primarily being the closest to the original arcade entry that was out there for the time. It's very fast paced, very frantic. If you've ever played WWF in Your House, you know and understand what I mean here. It's just mad, just balls to the wall bonkers, but it's very funny in what it tries to do. You will have some funny moments and you will have a lot of laughs with it, especially if you're playing with a group of mates. If anything, that's what this game really kind of tries to focus on, is the multiplayer aspect, because back in the day growing up, if you were a fan of wrestling, which I was, there's a very good chance you would have got to play a lot of these games at the weekends. You would have either had a mate that owned the game on their whatever platform they had, or you would have managed to rent it out, and this is where you would have spent the majority of your time just beating the crap out of everybody and trying to compete to see who is the overall winner. But you really just would have had a blast with your mates. And it just really reflects on, quite simply, one of the best eras in gaming. That's when it was at its most fun. Now don't get me wrong, like online games today do have their place in many ways, but nothing beats having a group of your mates around at the house and just having a laugh and having a blast playing your favourite games. And this particular title here was just a reflection of its time, because wrestling was huge in the 90s, it really was. Now it's still big today, if anything it generates more money today, but I think when we go back to the best eras, the 90s and early 2000s was definitely the peak of wrestling, because you had the best best characters, the best names. Just the whole atmosphere around wrestling was just huge. It really was just a massive spectacle, and these games did reflect that in many ways. Now, things would change over the coming years on the PlayStation and even other platforms, with wrestling games moving away from 2D digitized graphics to more 3D elements. When you seen like WWF Warzone and Attitude, and then later entries even with other brands with WCW and the like, they all tried to follow similar kind of characteristics. But still, very very cool. For its time, while there was a limited selection of wrestlers available, you did get to play as some of your favourite characters and just have a laugh and have a blast. And if you were into fighting games at all, for its time this would have been one of the best that you could have played. It was fun, challenging, tricky, frustrating. It had all of those elements, but it was a damn good time, and it was a great entry to have in your collection. Even today, if you are a collector, it's worth having this among all the catalogue of games that you own. But still, I'd love to hear your thoughts of this. Were you a fan of this particular game growing up? Were you a fan of this style of wrestling game more particularly during that generation? And did you also have a blast playing it with your mates? So we'll be interested to hear your thoughts on it, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more wrestling games like this that did release on the PS1, you can check out this next video. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.